Shalom, it's Levi Shore. Welcome back to Swing at Torah. So here's the big question. How close are we actually to Mashiach coming? How close are we to the Yemos HaMashiach, to the days of Messiah starting? And what are all these world events that are like shaping around us? We have big things happening. We have this horrible attack that happened on Simchas Torah, Shabbos, and Shmini Atzeres in Israel, the October 7th attack. And I think it's been 9 months. Israel has been in a war for 9 months with Hamas. It's heating up on the northern border. There's more and more conflicts back and forth between Israel and Hezbollah. Hezbollah is beginning to send these big barrages of rockets over, and some of them are getting through the Iron Dome. And behind this all is Iran, Persia, who's using these proxies, even the Houthis in Yemen. They're attacking even from Syria sometimes. It's just, and then we see this like just rise of like, literally Hamas supporters all around the world, all through Europe, all through America, protesting, rioting, and just rising up against Jews right in front of synagogues. And why is all this happening? So we're going to take a look. We're going to go to some very interesting sources today in Sefer Daniel, in the book of Daniel. And this is really going to describe this whole process, and it's going to give us a lot more clarity of what's going on right now. So Nebuchadnezzar, he was the first king of the Babylonian Empire, and he was given a dream, just like the Pharaoh in Egypt was given the dream of future events. So he was given a dream of what's called the four empires, and Babylon was the first of these four empires. So we're not going to go through in the Aramaic so much today, but we'll go through it a little quicker in the English, and we'll try to talk about it and try to relate it to some of the world events that we see unfolding around us. But what he was shown is, so Daniel also was given the dream to be able to tell Nebuchadnezzar what his dream was and what the dream means. So Daniel speaking to Nebuchadnezzar, and he says, "O king, as you looked on, there appeared a great statue. The statue, which was huge and its brightness surpassing, stood before you, and its appearance was awesome. So the head of the statue was of fine gold, its breast and arms were of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, and its legs were of iron, and its feet part iron and part clay." All right, so what does this mean? So the beginning of the four empires, the head of gold, that represented the Babylonian Empire. And then it's interesting because then the value of each empire after that starts to diminish, which is an interesting concept. So then the next empire, and we notice that now the arms are two. People have two arms. So this was a split empire. So the first empire is the gold of Babylon, and the silver arms represent the two nations coming together of Persia and Media, and that forms the Persian Empire. So then the bellies and the thighs, it's interesting. So the stomach, at first, it's this is of copper, bronze. So at first it's united, it's the united stomach, and that's going to be the next empire of Greece. But then it starts to split into the thighs, and Alexander the Great, he was the beginning of the Greek Empire, and his empire splits between his four generals. And then we see the two major splits north of Eretz Israel, the line of Seleucids, I think they're called. It was like Antiochus. A lot of them were named Antiochus. The one in the Hanukkah, days of Hanukkah. And then the Ptolemies down in Egypt. So they were always fighting back and forth. And then Israel was right in the middle. And then finally, the legs of iron. Once again, there's two legs. And this represents the Roman Empire, and there is an Eastern and Western Roman Empire. So the Western Roman Empire is Rome, and then the Eastern Roman Empire was started by Emperor Constantine in Constantinople, which is modern-day Turkey, and they became the Byzantine Empire, as they were called. And now this is iron. So we see the value is not as much as in the ancient world, but it's fierce. Its military is far beyond like anything that could be imagined in the ancient world. And we see just the massive military technology today of the Iron Empire. And we see, the jets, the stealth fighters, stealth bombers, the missiles, hypersonic missiles, the thermonuclear warheads. We see the tanks and the aircraft carriers, destroyers, nuclear submarines. So just the vast military power of the iron. And then its feet, part of the feet were iron and part of it were clay. So here we see a lot of the alliances today. Now, the Ibn Ezra said the clay represents the powers of Yishmael. So that is the Arab powers, and including in the Arab powers, not only like nations like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, not only those Arab powers, but also Persia itself, which is interesting. So Persia, which was the second empire, because they adopted the religion of Ishmael, because they adopted the religion of Islam, they are now part of also the powers of Ishmael. And then we see that these are kind of joined together. So we see there's a lot of in our days, we see there's a lot of economic relationship. There's a lot of trade between all these different nations. The Arab nations trade with the West. There's oil coming from the Middle East. There's technology, entertainment coming back to the Middle East, from Europe, from America. And then there's just an exchange of just food, food, agriculture going all around the world. So we see it connected that way. There's military alliances that Turkey, even though that it's a Muslim nation, it used to be more of a secular nation, but it's becoming more predominantly a Muslim nation, right there in NATO. So we see the alliances. There's an alliance between America and Saudi Arabia that's lasted for a long time. And even though that America, used to have an alliance with Persia during the days of the Shah, and that alliance was kind of strained when the Ayatollah took over, we still see that there's all kinds of dealings. And we see, unfortunately, a very devastating connection. We see in the present days that the Biden administration released over 100 billion in sanction relief, and then unfortunately that money went immediately into arming terrorist proxy groups and the attack on Israel. So we see they're really all connected. All these nations, even though they're kind of separate, because the toes are like separate from the foot, they separate into different directions, but they're all still attached to these four empires. They're all still attached to this one main structure. So then it's interesting. So then he goes on, and Daniel explains to Nebuchadnezzar, he says, as you looked on, a stone was hewn out, not by hands, and struck the statue on his feet of iron and clay and crushed him. Now this stone that's being hewn out, this is the process that's happening to us right now. This is the process that's happening to the Jewish people. And this is the beginning of entering into Yemos HaMashiach. And we are in right now the period called Ikvos de Mashiach, the footsteps of Mashiach. And then to the best of my understanding, even though there's different Mefarshim, there's different Torah commentators that say different things, but there would be a period that at the end of that called Chevle Mashiach, the birth pangs of Mashiach, and that could be from the footsteps to the birth pangs. And it's possible that the birth pangs themselves could just be this period of 9 months. There are some of Chazal that say the birth pangs, the period's longer. It could be like a 7-year period, which we may have been in, even maybe it started in 1948 after the Holocaust, or directly after the Holocaust. And we went into this birth pang period, or just more intense of the footsteps. But the birth pang period, because everything becomes more intense, the troubles for the Jewish people become more and more intense, like the contractions of a woman about to give birth. And then the birth in the spiritual sense here is the birth of Mashiach, the revelation of Mashiach, the king of the Jewish people, and entering into a different age of Jewish history where we're going to have a massive return of the Jewish people to the Torah and the mitzvos, and just going to see a great return in our relationship, a closer relationship with Hashem again, like we had in days of old, as they say. So then, all at once, the iron, the clay, and the bronze, and the silver, and the gold were crushed and became like chaff of the threshing floors of summer, and a wind carried them off until no trace of them was left. So even though these four empires were very, very powerful and mighty all throughout history, and we see like the great might of like the American Empire today, the growing Russian Empire again, once powerful Soviet Union, and the great powers of Europe. We see the rise, again, of nations like, of course, England, France, Germany. Who else can we throw in there? Italy, let's throw in Spain. I don't know. All of them had they're great. We'll talk about it soon. They have their great moments in the empire. Of course, Italy, the beginning of the Roman Empire. But so they're all going to fly away like chaff when Mashiach comes. But the stone that struck the statue became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. So this means that this is like the establishment in the kingdom of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. And this is where a Torah flows throughout the whole world. And the world accepts the wisdom of the Torah. And they accept that there's only one God. They accept that Hashem is the only one God. There's only one infinite being. We're all Hashem's children. And the whole world, that's when we enter into the Nevuah, the prophecies of peace, of world peace, finally, of great things for the world. But see, to this process, so we're in this process now. But what's very interesting is Hashem is making this stone that's going to strike the foot of the statue. So at the end of the reign of the four empires, that's going to be Mashiach leading the Jewish people. But the stone is being created by Hashem. Hashem is using all these events to push us to do teshuvah, to push us together, to unite us. And we're beginning to see that Jewish people are not as welcome where we've always been welcome traditionally, especially in America, where I'm familiar with. But like a lot of Jews are more liberal politically. They've gone to protests and rallies for all the other groups, but a lot of them saw that when it came time for everyone to rally for us after the horrible attack on October the 7th, that there was no one left. There was no one to rally for us. It was only us alone. It was only the Jewish people alone, and that's going to bring us closer together. Okay, so that's the first vision that Nebuchadnezzar was given. Now, what's interesting is Nebuchadnezzar, he saw the four empires in the shape of a statue of a man. And he saw the stone, he saw the Jewish people as lifeless, that destroyed these four empires of humanity. But what's interesting is Hashem's going to give Daniel another vision. And Daniel, when he sees a vision of these four empires, he's going to see these four empires as terrifying beasts, that they're not really what a human being's really supposed to be. And it's really only Mashiach who has the image of a man. We'll see. So this is chapter 7 in Sefer Daniel. And he says, in the first year of King Belshazzar of Babylon, of Babel, Daniel saw a dream and a vision of his mind in bed. Afterward, he wrote down the dream, beginning the account. So I believe this happened. So Belshazzar was, I believe, the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar, and he, the famous banquet and the writing on the wall will happen later in Sefer Daniel. So Daniel, he told the following. He said, in my vision at night is compared to Gullus, to the exile. He said, I saw the four winds of heaven stirring up the great sea, and four mighty beasts different from each other emerged from the sea. The first was like a lion, but had eagle's wings. As I looked on, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted off the ground and set on its feet like a man and given the mind of a man. So here, Daniel sees the Babylonian Empire as a terrifying beast. It's a lion. It was strong. It's the king, the king of the jungle, the king of the wild animals. It had eagle's wings, which means like Nebuchadnezzar's armies quickly, flew around the world, all, four parts of the world, four directions, conquering their empire. And then the wings were plucked off. It's interesting, there's a story in Sefer Daniel where Nebuchadnezzar, he was forced to live like an animal in the forest for 7 years, and then it kind of gave him like a little bit of humanity. It made him more human, after being lowered like that. So then the second empire, Daniel says, then I saw a second different beast, which was like a bear, but raised on one side with 3 fangs in its mouth among its teeth, and was told, arise, eat much meat. So this is the Persian Empire. We know from so the Persian Empire was interesting. The Persian Empire, you had leaders, you had a king like Koresh, Cyrus, who originally allowed the rebuilding of the Second Temple. And then you had, of course, Achashverosh, the evil Achashverosh, and his evil advisor Haman, boo, from Megillas Esther, from the Purim story, from the days of Mordecai and Esther. And then they stopped the building of the second Beis HaMikdash. And then when we got the redemption from Haman, the defeat of Haman, and Haman was hung, and his 10 sons were hung. And then Esther gave birth to Darius, to Darius. And then King Darius, or King Darius, he allowed the rebuilding of the second Beis HaMikdash, the second temple, in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah. Okay, so that's the Persian Empire. And then after that, I looked on, and there was another one, like a leopard. So a very fast animal. And it had on its back 4 wings like those of a bird, and the beast had 4 heads, and dominion was given to us. Okay, so this represents the Greek Empire. So Alexander the Great was the young, great conqueror who conquered all these other, he conquered the Persian Empire and many other countries to build the Greek Empire. His tutor was Aristotle, so he brought like the Greco-Roman teaching. I mean, I'm sorry, Greg at that time, the Hellenistic, the Greek teaching, the Greek philosophy, the Greek sciences, the Greek culture, like the arts, the plays and the poems and the beauty of the Greek architecture. So he brought that around the world. He brought the culture of Hellenism through his military conquest, and then he died very young. And his kingdom was divided up into his four generals, as I think we mentioned before. Oh, finally, you're getting closer to us. So after that, as I looked on in the night vision, there was a fourth beast. Now I believe this is the longer exile. So I think the first three empires Daniel sees in one night, and then the next night he has a vision just of the fourth beast. But this is the longest empire. I personally believe we're in the year 2024 of the Roman exile, that it coincides with the death of King Herod, who died in the year quote unquote zero. And then when the Jewish people lost like autonomous rule, and then we were under Roman domination after that. So this could be the count of the Roman exile. But after that, as I looked on, right, there was a fourth beast. It was fearsome, it was dreadful, very powerful, with giant, great iron teeth. So we see here iron again in Nebuchadnezzar's vision of the statue, like the legs were iron. Here the beast has iron teeth, just like, and with the iron teeth just devoured and crushed and stamped the remains with its feet. And it was different from all the other beasts which had gone before it, and it had 10 horns. So this is very interesting because now as we get into the modern age, especially the 20th century into the 21st century, we see the military technology has increased to such a level where the destruction is so great. Every war is just so great. The great world wars of 20th century, just millions and millions of people, were destroyed in these wars, killed, and just great devastation on civilian populations, like the atomic bombs of Fat Man and Little Boy were dropped. I may have mixed them up. Were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and there was civilian bombings. Sometimes the Blitz that was done in London, and then London and America retaliated on German populations. And there's no more fortresses or castles with the advent of air technology, air power. I mean, there's nothing, just everything's a target. With drones, it's like even a level farther removed, because it's like you don't even have to have a live soldier carrying it out. Someone can be with their little video game controller, thousands of miles away, bring destruction. So, right, we see the power of the fourth beast of the modern day incarnations of Rome. The 10 horns, I believe this refers to, there was 10 great phases that the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire went through. I'm more familiar with the history of the Western Roman Empire. So, I mean, if we look at it, like we can see, like, first there's ancient Rome, and then there's different periods of great kings, that take over, let's say, the mantle of Edom of the Roman Empire. So we like to see the rise, for instance, of like Charlemagne, the rise of the Greek power, the French power. There's times where we had like the Spanish Armada, it's what was it, Ferdinand and I forgot, Isabella and Ferdinand, I forgot. But we see the Spain has their moment, of their empire, and we see, I think Victorian England, I don't know which was exactly the greatest period of the British Empire, but the great strength of Britain, and then the times like the German Empire. And so so they all, like, all these great, then you can say Napoleonic France. So they all had their moments of being the most dominant, powerful force. And then in the East, it's, I don't know the history as well, but it's like the Byzantine Empire. And at some point that goes into like, the Roman Empire and just all the powers there. You look at people like Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun, I don't know exactly, but there's different powers, of the Roman Empire in the East all throughout history. And then it continues and says, while I was gazing upon these horns, a new little horn sprouted up among them. 3 of the older horns were uprooted to make room for it. There were eyes in this horn like those of a man, and a mouth that spoke arrogantly. Now, on a national level, I think this is talking about the United States. I think this is talking about the history of America. So if you go back to the Revolutionary period, America is the little horn. It's like it's young country. It's brand new. It's like these new ideals, this Constitution, Bill of Rights, all these new ideas of human rights. But it uprooted three of the other horns. So what does that mean? Like, because America uprooted, in a sense, it uprooted the British Empire, it uprooted the French Empire, and it uprooted the Spanish Empire. All of them controlled, colonies in, quote unquote, New World. And then we see the rise of this new nation. The final phase of Edom, the final phase of the Roman Empire is the USA. It's like it's the one main world power right now. I don't know, as on a leadership level, as the personal, person, there will come a time, I think it's the person that the Torah calls Gog. I mean, it's probably what the Christians refer to as the Antichristos, the Antichrist, the person that will oppose Mashiach, the person that will oppose the king in Israel. And I don't know. I mean, I think if you asked I mean, if you ask the liberal right now, in their mind, the person in the little horn, I mean, their mind would probably be someone like a Donald Trump, just like an arrogant guy. I don't know. I don't know if I can fully buy that right now because he did do some good things for the Jewish people. I mean, he moved the temple. I'm sorry, not temple. He moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. I mean, he declared the Golan Heights part of Israel. I mean, he took out Soleimani, who was a very evil Iranian general. I don't know. It's harder for me to see. Maybe we don't know the person yet. Maybe we do. I'm not sure who will be who will be the counter force to Mashiach. I mean, we don't know Mashiach yet. Mashiach's not revealed, so maybe the nemesis of Mashiach also isn't revealed yet. We don't know. And then it does seem like there's potential. There's going to be three of these people, three of these opposing forces. There's one that's mentioned a lot of Midrashim, and that's it's supernatural. He's called Armilus, the son of Satan, the son of Satan. So Romulus. I mean, Armilus, I think, stands for Romulus. There's a Midrash that says he's going to be born by supernatural means. It's really crazy. The priest of the Vatican, it says they're going to give their seed to this statue of the Basula, which, I mean, think they would give their seed in some unholy rite to a statue of the Virgin Mary, and then this anti-Christos figure would emerge, and that's the figure that will fight Mashiach ben Yosef in the gates of Jerusalem. And then it's the question: does Mashiach, is Mashiach ben Yosef, is he victorious or not? Hopefully he is, and he kills Romulus ben Satan. I don't know. We'll see, but it does seem like we're very close. It does seem like big events are unfolding. I think this is interesting to take a look at as the events seem to draw us closer and closer. What can we do? Teshuvah, tefillah. I mean, praying to Hashem 3 times, at least 3 times a day, reciting Tehillim, learning Torah, even listening to a Torah video like this or many others, and Gemilas Chasadim. Kindness is so important. Working on our mitos, growing, everyone's growing, developing, great character traits, and just being kind to each other. I hope you enjoyed it. I really hope to see you back again on Sweet and Good Torah. I didn't say at the beginning. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the good stuff. Please let me hear your comments. When do you think Mashiach is coming? Do you know about Mashiach? Because it's the first time you're ever hearing about it. I'd like to hear all your thoughts, and hope to see you back again soon.